Welcome everyone to our class in Iyun B'Gemara. How we're going to watch how the Torah is opened up and explained from Har Sinai all the way down. So as we mentioned last time, we have Har Sinai, and we had all the Chachamim agreeing with themselves until Rav Yossi ben Yoeza, where we had our first machlokus, and we had a few machlokuses with Hillel and Shammai, and then the students mishamish their Rebbe called Sarko, and machlokuses became to increase. Now, in our piece we had Rebbe Shmuel, Rebbe Kiva we settled on, and then we had the Rumia of Abaya and Rava, and we had two answers of how do we solve the Pesukim of and Subin. Okay, in one hand you have to give it the very, very best, in the other hand you can give it the very, very worst. So we had Rav Papa's answer, which said that all metalton is meitav, because if you can't sell it in one place, you can always sell it somewhere else. You'll get your money back, but land is limited to the amount of buyers. So therefore the Torah only allowed meitav. Rav Huna said, no, actually, Meitav is very good. It's like, or Kesef is just as good as Meitav. That's what he said. That's the O statement that we had to analyze. But you can use either one. So Rav Nachman said, wait a minute, if you're going to allow Kesef and say it's like Meitav, so then you're going to have to allow Shavik Kesef. And he said, no, that's only B'delesli. And that seemingly got out of the problem that Reb Papa Abaya had brought up, and everyone was answering, because you can't say Kesef Meitav and then say Shavik Kesef, because you'll end up with a kasha between, wait a minute, Meitav and Subin, conflict. So he says, you know something, Subin is given only when you don't have Kesef or Meitav. So that's where we were holding. Now we're holding in the Rosh, and the Rosh brought the Rif. Okay, let's get into the Rosh now. Here's our Rosh. Okay. The Rosh brought Rashi, who said that Rav Huna was arguing with Reb Papa, different shitas, Tosfos explained that means that we have to be a little doch in Rav Nachman, because if Rav Huna wanted to explain the Pesukim, there was three things he had to explain. So he only explained Kesef and Meitav, and then Rav Nachman asked him a kasha, and then he explained Subin, and that conflict between Subin and Meitav, that was a bias problem. Okay, we have to say that he was going to say the whole thing, and it was interrupted by Rav Nachman. Be that as may, the Rif also agrees that Rav Huna is arguing with Rav Papa, and the Rif adds that the halacha is like Rav Papa, and he gives a reason. What's the reason? Rav Papa is the basroi. He's at the end of the line, and the rule is you go, and when it comes to Pesak halacha, we hold like the basroi. Okay. Rabbeinu Tam, we brought in Tosfos, who brought Rashi and said that they were arguing, and said there's another girsa. Instead of saying Rav Huna Omar, instead of saying Omar Rav Huna, which would mean a sign of a machlokus, there's another girsa that says Rav Huna Omar, which is a new starting position. And then he brings Rabbeinu Tam, who has three halachas over there, and with Nazikin he's holding like Rav Huna. And that was the end of Tosfos bringing Rabbeinu Tam. We don't know the connection really between these two girsas and the Rif and Rashi and the Rambam, and that's going to really be the Rosh's work. The Rosh is going to explain to us how these two girsas work and where the nafkamina will be. But his stated problem is, the Rosh's stated problem is with Rabbeinu Tam, because Rabbeinu Tam tells us that the halacha is like Rav Huna, and we have this rule that you go after the Basroi, so the halacha should be like Reb Papa. The Rif didn't explain anything more than that. I mean, he just said that you go after the Basroi. He didn't explain what gears he was holding, any of that information. He just said that there's a machlokus and you go according to the Basroi, because that's the Rif's job, is to bring the halacha. Rabbeinu Tam also in Sefer Yasha brought in the Tosfos, doesn't say why he's holding like Rav Huna against the Sfar Basroi. Obviously, Rabbeinu Tam knew the Rif. He lived, the Rif was the time of Rashi, so he obviously knew the Rif. But he doesn't explain why the halacha is like Rav Huna and not like the Rif. So the Rosh comes into play, and that's what we were doing last. The Rosh explains why Rabbeinu Tam is not bothered with the problem of Basroi. Okay, how does he do it? And he gives us two possibilities in Rabbeinu Tam. Either Rabbeinu Tam was holding that Rav Huna and Reb Papa agree. Of course, we said the gear, so there should be Omer Rav Huna. That would be better if they agree. And the problem of Basroi then falls away because it's not Shaykh. If, in fact, Rav Papa agrees with Rav Huna, so then there's no problem of Basroi. In order to accomplish that, however, we had to change a little bit the question that was being asked in the Gemara. Okay, we thought there was a front-on confrontation between Meitav and Subin. And then Reb Papa just answered why Subin is actually, how Subin is better than Land, and that's why you can only give Meitav. We thought that, but everything was lechatchila. That's what we thought Reb Papa meant. But if you're going to learn that they're not arguing, you're going to have to say no. Even Reb Papa knows that you can, agrees that you can only give Subin b'diavad when you don't have Kesef and you don't have Meitav. What was the question of the Gemara? How comes? We said Pershuha. We said that it was a memra perish. It wasn't a teretz. It was a memra perish. How come when it comes to land you have to give the best, and when it comes to Subin you can give the worst? And then the answer was Reb Papa's answer, because land, even though it's like land, when you give it lachachil, you have to give the best because we want to make sure that the person gets his money back. And, oh boy, just let me try to close that window a little. They're doing some construction work outside. Hold on. Okay, I'm sorry about that noise. Okay, so, good. So we said that Reb Papa holds like Rav Huna. There's only a question of what's the difference. Explain to me the difference between Meitav, L'chatchila, and Subin B'diavad. And the answer is you need best L'chatchila even because you want to make sure he gets his money back. So it's a question of having a lot of customers jump at it. But with land, you don't need Meitav because he can always get his money back. If not here, then getting customers somewhere else. So that was the answer of the Rosh to explain Rabbeinu Tam, that really Rav Huna and Reb Papa agree, and to do that we just had to change the Gemara from a kasha to a shela, and to answer we just explain the difference between lechatchila and b'diavad. Okay, now the other way that the Rosh presented the possibility of why Rabbeinu Tam wasn't worried about Basroi is that really they're arguing just like the Rif said, like Rashi said, and we can learn the Girsa Rav Huna Omar. You asked me about the Basroi, no problem. Rav Ashi, when he was Masader, this interchange, he really should have put Rav Huna first in the discussion. How come he waited till this last position? It was a flag, an indicator that in this particular case, Rav Ashi, who's the Basroi of the Basroi, he used the Masader of Shas, wanted to tell us that we don't use the rule of Basroi, and we actually are going to hold like Rav Huna. Okay, is that more or less clear? A lot of stuff went. A lot of stuff.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah, I think it's
Beseda.
yeah,
That's clear. All right? So now we're up to the third part of the Rosh. The beautiful part of the Rosh here, he wants the Machriya. He wants to show that the Rif is indeed correct, and he wants to do that by showing that Rabbeinu Tam, no matter which way you hold Rabbeinu Tam, either pligi or low pligi, will be impossible. Okay? That's where we're holding. So let's get to that part of the Rif. Yes. So to do this part of the Rif, we're going to need a Gemara. Okay, so maybe we should do the Gemara first. The Gemara is in Baba Kama Yud Amud Beis. The Mishnah says, Kol shechafti b'shmiraso hiksharti es nisko. What does that mean? Anything that I'm obligated to watch, then it says, if I prepared the damage. What does the Bartanura say? Kol shechafti b'shmiraso. Kol davar nischayafti l'shomro. Everything that I am obligated to watch, hiksharti es nisko. What does that mean? Im lo shomro sav k'ru'ui v'hizik ani hu shiksharti uzamanti es hezik. If I didn't guard properly, then I'm the one who prepared and made the hezek. V'ani chayav alav. What's the problem? Because really, this is, you could say that shmir is like a garam. You didn't damage the person. You didn't watch your ox. And mamela, your ox went out and damaged another person's property, but that's called a din mamela. It's not direct. So maybe you would think you would be pater. Comes along the Mishnah says no. The din isn't shmira. As long as you have a din shmira, then you have an obligation. What happens if someone else's animal is running down the street and is going to go into another person's field, and then you don't stop it and he goes in the other person's field? Well, you don't have to pay. It was on the baal of the animal. So if you want to be a nice person, you could stop it, definitely. Maybe you'll get a nice mitzvah in Shemayim. But definitely when the damage happens, you don't have to pay because you never had an obligation to watch it. Here's the case, a better case, of course, of the Bartanuri. It says, Kagon Shemose Shoro Hereshot V'Katan Chayav. You see, if you give your shore to a Hereshot V'Katan, and then they don't watch it properly, so you can't say, well, I gave it to a shomer. No, since the shmira was not proper, you're chayav to do it. Why? Shalav haya mutal shmiras shoro. On you fell the obligation of washing your shore, not on these cheresher levakotin. And since you had the obligation, they don't, hare lo shomer kuru'i lo, and you didn't do a proper watching, then you have to pay. What does it mean? Hiksharti mixas nisko chayafti b'tishlumi nisko keheksha kol nisko. If I did a little, it's like I did everything. Im tikanti uzamanti mixas hanezek. If I fixed up, prepared part of the damager, I didn't do the whole damage, just part of it. Afal pi shelo zamanti v'tikanti es kulo. Even though I didn't create the whole damager, I'm still niskafti alav ki'ilu zamantiv kulo, as if I did the whole thing. Now, what's that case? Kagon chofa bor teisha b'rshus harabim bor ubo acher ve'ishlimu lesara. A man builds a bore of teisha amos in b'rshus harabim, and now the second man comes and he fills it to 10. V'nofel sham a shor or chamor umes. Then a shor or chamor falls into it. The second man who the second man is chayav, right? Because even though he did the end of it, he was the one that made it into a killer. A boar test, we're going to learn, or maybe we won't learn, but anyway, a boar test is a killing object. If it falls into 9, you're not. If he dies, you don't have to pay. So only went 10. So since you did the 10th tefach, even though you didn't do the first 9, the chiddush of the Mishnah is that you have to pay everything. Okay, I'm going to read this Mishnah this Gemara a little through, because really we're going to have to concentrate at the last phase of the Gemara, but it's very, very interesting Gemara, and this is going to be, remember, this Gemara is going to be the basis of the Rosh's disproof of Rabbeinu Tam. He's saying, according to this Gemara, Rabbeinu Tam, you cannot say that the halacha is like Rav Huna. So let's see what the Gemara says in this case, right? The Gemara says, it makes a diuk. Remember diuk. It says, Chafti b'tishlume nesko. Okay. Chafti b'nesko lo katane. Ela b'tashlume nesko. It says, if hiksharti mixas nesko, if I did a little bit of damage, I made that 10th tefach, then it says, Chafte b'tashlume nesko. What's tashlume nesko? It should have said Chafti b'nesko. I have to pay everything. What's this tashlume nesko? Strange extra word. Just said I have to pay everything. When was it tashlume? So here we have that diuk in the Mishnah, and we have an answer. Taniyaho the Tana Rabbanon. We have a brisa that explains what this tashlume nezik means. Milamed shahalim metaplin b'nevela. It means that the owner of the dead ox that fell in a pit, he's going to have to deal with the nevela. Meaning, let's say the animal was worth $100. When he pulls the animal out of the pit and sells the skin is still good. So let's say he'll get $10. So the mazik only has to pay 90. Tashluma, he just has to mashlim the nezik. He doesn't have to pay all the nezik and keep the carcass and take care of it and sell it. He has to only pay the difference. Is that clear? You with me on that? Okay, good. Yeah. Okay, good. I'm talking a lot because I want to get to the main point here, and then I'll let you take over. But there's just a lot of things we have to get in the beginning. And when we get later on in the Achronim, they're going to come back to this Gemara because, as I said the last time, this Rosh it brings a proof against Rabbeinu Tam. So all the people are going to now have to. Your job is to defend Rabbeinu Tam against this kasha of the Rosh. That will be the job. Okay, so this Gemara is going to be coming up in the Achronim. The halacha we're going to see is going to shift over to the Rambam, the Ramah. We're not going to see the Ashkenazim because the Torah, for some reason, we're going to see shifted the ground and moved away from his father. But the Achronim will come back and look at this Gemara and say, wait a minute, how are we going to defend Rabbeinu Tam against this? So we need this Gemara. I'm going to read it a little more. Okay, so that's what Tashlume Nezik means. It means that the owner of the dead ox has to metapel benevela, and the Nezik has to pay the difference in price between what the owner sold that is his dead ox's carcass for and the total damage. So the mazik only pay $90, and the $10 will be taken by the nizak. So the Gemara says, Menohani Mile. How do we know that the nizak is metapel benevela? How do we know that? So we're going to have here no less than 4 different answers. Omer Avami, the Omer Kro, Maka Nefesh Behema Yishal Mena. The pasuk says a person who hits a animal, Yishal Mena. He shall pay. That's a simple drush. But we have an al tikra. Al tikra yishal mena yashli mena. There's a remez. You don't read yishal mena, but yashli mena. You have to just do the hashlama. After the baal of the dead animal takes his $10, you just have to be mashlim. That was Rev Ami. Rav Kahana Omer Mehacha. He has a different pasuk. Omar, it says, Im toref yitoref yaviu aid hatrefa, and then lo yishalem. The simple pasuk says, if the animal, you're a shomer, you're watching the animal, and it gets attacked by a fox or something, then if you bring proof that it was a wild attack of an animal, so then you don't have to pay. That's Peshat in the Pasuk. But what's the drush? Ad treifa yishalem, treifa ba'atzma lo yishalem. So they're learning im toref yitaref yovu ad ha-treifa. Okay, that's the drush. You only have to pay, the mazik has to pay ad ha-treifa. Ad ha-treifa. Okay. Cheskia, Omer. These are interesting drushes, but for our in purposes, we won't dwell on them. Cheskia, the third position, Omer mehacha. It says v'hamesi elo. In the pasuk of Bor, it says, here's the pasuk, Onoda hu. Here's the pasuk in Shemos. Onoda kishor nogahu mitmol sham. It's known that this animal is Bora. He did it 2 times. 3 times machlokus. V'lo yishmereno ba'alav. And now the Baal didn't watch it after he had been warned properly. Shalem yishalem shor tachas hashor. The mazik has to pay a shor for the shor that he killed. And then it says, V'hamesi elo. Simple Peshat is that we're talking about the payment. So it should be that the mazik pays shor tachas shor, and he gets the mace, right? So from the simple meaning of this pasuk, it looks just the opposite we're trying to prove. It looks like he pays his $100 and the mazik, and he keeps the mace, right? That's what seems to be, right? It's a simple pashat. Would you agree with me on that? Yeah. Shor tachas hashor, he pays the complete damage, mace yellow, and then he gets the karka. Well, Cheskia doesn't say that. Cheskia learns this way. V'hamesi yellow lenizak. He says no. It doesn't lead to mazik. It means to, it means to the, I did it again. There, I didn't do the shift key. How am I doing that? Let me control U. There we go. Okay. The Lenizak, right? So that's what Cheskia says. V'chein Tana de Cheskia. The yeshiva of Cheskia also learned the same way. They spelt out a little what Cheskia meant. They said V'hamesi elo lenizak. Yes, it does mean to the nizak, and they added a little help. Okay. Why I keep doing that? Okay. They added a little help. Ata o lenizak o any elamazik. They said, wait a minute. Is it the nizak? Maybe you would think it's the mazik, like we thought the simple pasuk was. Amarta, I'll bring you a proof. Lo kachaya, it can't be. That's all they said. So Cheskia didn't help us too much, I don't think. So the Gemara says, my lo kachaya. Wait, what type of disproof is this? The simple pasuk is the mazik gets the nevela. Now you're telling me, no, it must be the nizak? Lo kachaya. Right. Can't be. What's the proof? So we have here Abaya going to spell proof, okay? The proof is like this. Omer Abaya. What they meant wasn't Becheskia, their raya, macheshes, right? The raya against it being the nizak, the mazik, excuse me, is isal kadai dadtach nevela lamazik have. If you will persist and say that the nevela belongs to the mazik, so then lichtov rachmana shor tachas hashor v'lishtok. Then the pasuk should have said Yishalem shor tachas hashor. How would we know then that the mazik has to deal with the nevela? Obviously, he paid for everything, correct?
Right.
So if he's going to pay for everything, we're not going to give now an extra bonus to the nizak. We're just trying to get him all his money back, right? So if the Torah really wanted to say that the mazik gets the nevela, it should say he pays shor tachas hashor, he pays the $100, and we would know automatically that the nevela comes to him. Why should the nizak gain? Correct?
Right.
Therefore, it can't be that the mazik gets it. V'hamesiya lo lamali. What do I need it for? If it's only the mazik gets it, then the extra words v'hamesiya lo. Shma minei l'nizak. Those extra words comes to tell you it goes to the nizak. Okay? Now, I'm going to skip this part. The Gemara now goes, really, you would think that these are three different, I said three different positions. Rav Ami, Rav Kahana, and Cheskin. The Beit Cheskin is the same position. And you would think there are three different alternatives. The Gemara here says tzricha. You actually need all three. It goes through all the variations of if I only had one, why I would not think the other ones. Okay? So I'm going to skip that little piece, and I have a nice little mathematics, but I don't think it's necessary for it. Okay. So that's it. So we had three different positions, and Abai explained Cheskia, right? Short Tachas would already mean that the Mazik would get it. So Amesi Elo has to come for the Nizak. Yeah?
Yep.
Omale Rav Kahana LaRav. Now, Rav Kahana now asks a kasha to Rav. Elameata de kasav rachmanav amesi elo. Wait a minute. Cheskia said that the extra words amesi elo means that the nevela goes to the nizak, right? That's what he said.
Yep.
Holav hachi. If I didn't have amesi elo, what would I say? I mean a nevela mazik have, correct? Because it says short takas ashur, right? Wait a minute. Hashta I islay l'didei kama trefos. If the mazik had a whole bunch of trefos, yehivle, he could give them. How do we know he could give the trefa? Let's say the mazik had forget about the one that's in the pit. Let's say he had a couple of trefos. He was a trefa dealer. He was a trefa. He had come trefas around. Right, exactly. Or you see, he's a skinner of animals, and he has trefas around. What's the difference, right? Whatever. So if the mazik had a whole bunch of trefas, he could give it. How do we know? To the nizak. How do we know? The omamar yashiv l'rabba shava kesef afilu subin. Right. The mazik we know can give shava kesef afilu subin. Right?
Right.
So if he had, he was skinning meat, or like you said, he was a butcher, had a comet trefas, you know what I mean? He could just take them and give it back. So didei mi boy, I need a pasuk to tell me that the one that gets bounced back to him.
The one itself, the one that died itself.
The one that died itself. Mi boy. What do I need a pasuk for? What do I need it for? What does that mean? I don't need a pasuk to tell me that the mazik gets it, because if the mazik gets it, then he can always give it.
If I say that the nizik gets it.
I'm sorry. No, the pasuk is. I'm sorry. You 100% correct. Why do we need a pasuk to tell me that the nizak gets it? The nizak is always going to get it. Why?
Because the mazik has an option of giving it to him.
Exactly.
And what's the proof the mazik has an option to give it to him? Because he could go into his refrigerator, take out a bunch of trefas, and say, here, I owe you $100. Here's 5 trefas for $100.
Exactly. So there's no, even if you're going to say that the mazik gets the trefa, the pasuk of Yashiv says he can give trefas back to the nizak. So the nizak is always going to get the trefa, and I don't need Vamesi Elo.
Right.
Right? So Rav Kahana says, Lo nitzricha ella pachas navel. These extra words, Vamesi Elo, is coming for a different altogether. That's what Rav Kahana concludes. It's coming for a din of piches navela, which means the depreciation of the value of the carcass from the time of the damage to a mudabadin. Who's going to have to suffer that? Of course, as you know, until you go to court and you solve, so that's the nizak has to suffer. Okay, any depreciation. But the fact that he gets the nevela, that's obvious because the mazik can give it to him because of Yashiv. Right. Now, from this Gemara right here it is, where the Rosh is going to knock out Rabbeinu Tam. We're not talking about how to pay back. We're talking about the nizak getting the nevela. But from this Gemara, Rev Kahana, the Rosh gives a destructive blow to Rabbeinu Tam. Any idea how he's going to do it?
So again, what does Rabbeinu Tam say? Rabbeinu Tam, remember what Rabbeinu Tam says.
Yeah, Rabbeinu Tam holds like Rev Huna. What does Rev Huna hold? You can give Kesef and Meitav, and only if you don't have Kesef and Meitav can you give Shaveh Kesef. That's the facts.
Right. So from here, from this Gemara is a raya that you could give Kesef or Meitav or Shaveh Kesef.
How?
Because if the only time he was able to give Shaveh Kesef would be only if he did not have Meitav, then you would need the pasuk to tell you V'hamesi Yeloi, that the nizik gets the treifa in a case where the mazik has Meitav.
That's great. Wow. That's very good. Thank you. I mean, wow. Very good. That's exactly right. Did you read the Rosh before?
Nope. No.
You did it. You did it. I'm telling you, well, it's an amazing. Now,
Okay.
you did it.
Baruch
Hashem, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. Excellent, 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 excellent. That was it. So now let's go back. That's exactly what the Rosh says. So you read it now. Veneer and Divrei, you can leave out my gray if you want. The gray is my little notes, but you can read inside. You can read on the screen if it's more comfortable.
I'm going to try to find it. Sorry.
Yeah, try it inside. No problem.
Let me just see if I can find it. Veneer and Divrei Rabbi Alphas Iker.
Right.
Rav Kahana Talmidei de Rava de Basrahu.
Okay, now I have to just, where am I? Let me just get my chart again. Yeah, you have to get the chart because what the Rosh just said now is going to be debatable. Okay, so I just wanted to just, get everything on the table here. Where am I? There we go. Okay. Sorry for the delay. There we go. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so now look, there's a problem here because the girsa in our Gemara is not the girsa that the Rosh brought down. Our Gemara, where's our Gemara? Our Gemara said, I didn't open the Gemara. You have the Gemara? I have to open the Gemara also.
Yeah, I have the which one? That's
the Gemara of Rev Kahana here that we're talking about. Yeah, what does the Gemara say there?
The Gemara says, Amalei Rav Kahana Rav. We have Amalei Rav Kahana Rav. Now, on the side of the Gemara, there's a nusach acher that says L'Rava.
Now, so who's learning that? Oh, V'chenu Ba'ashiri, which is the Rosh. So the Rosh is
telling you that the Rosh is a different girsa of Rava.
Exactly. Now, what will be the nafkamina? Okay. What will be the nafkamina? Is a big nafkamina here because there's two Rev Kahanas, it turns out. There's one that's up here, who's a Talmud of Rav, right? And there's one that's down here, right, who is the Rav Ashi, but he's really in the generation of Rav Papa. Okay, and really, he could even be talking to Rav. It's only like 40 years. He could be here talking to Rav also. Okay, the nafkamina will be, and I just want to bring it up with this Basroi problem. Okay, if he's talking to Rava, so he's involved. He's a Basroi, correct? He means, but if he's talking to Rav, he's not a Basroi. Here's Rav Huna. Rav Huna is a student of Rav. So if he's talking to Rav, he's not a Basroi.
Uh-huh.
Okay? So that's background information that you have to know, and it'll come up later on in the Shach over there, and the Shulchan Aruch is going to bring it up. But that's just background information that just has to be clear. But according to the Girsa of the Rosh, so he's talking, Rav Kahana is talking to Rava, which means he is also a Basroi. Okay, so now we can read what you can read inside there.
But got it. So, okay, so Venim de Rav Alphas Iker, the Rav Kahana Talmidei de Rava de Basrahu.
See, Rav is a Basroi.
Right, so he's saying that this Rav Kahana is holding like Rav Papa, the Rav Huna Ber Rav Yeshua. That means come on.
Stop.
How do we know that? Okay.
Okay. So first of all, what does that mean? How does the Rosh hold, what's the Shitas of Rosh in Reb Papa? That everything is equal. Right? Everything is equal. You can give equally Kesef, Meitav, and Shavik Kesef. Okay? Right. Now he said, I'm going to prove to you that Rev Kahana must agree with that Shita. And here it is from Agamara. Go ahead.
Daminu l'kaman. Amalei Rav Kahana l'Rava Taima de Kasev Rachmana v'hameis yiyalai. Halav hachi hava amina nevela demazik hava. So that's what they said before, that you need a pasuk of hameis yiyalai to tell you that the nevela goes to the nizik, or else you would have thought it goes to the mazik.
Right.
Hasta e islay l'didei, but now that if he had trefus on his own,
the mazik,
the mazik had trefus on his own, Yahweh, he could pay the nizik with the trefus. How do we know that? Amar Yashav l'Rabba Shavah Kesel Hafilu Subin, because we have a pasuk that tells you that the mazik could pay even Shavah Kesef, even Subin. So certainly you could also give trefus. Nevela didei mibai. The nevela itself doesn't need to mention and say that the mazik could give it to the nizik. Certainly the mazik could give it to the nizik.
Right.
And
here is the Rosh spelling exactly
right.
What you said.
And if Rav Kahana would have held like Rav Huna, who holds that you first must give meitav, and then if you
meitav and kesef, okay, both of them.
And kesef, right? I meant meitav and kesef.
Yeah.
If you're going to for kesef, then you may give, then you can't, then you should give. Subin, lay malay, let him say, or let us let
Rav answer back. Rev Kahana.
The israkra rehecha de. Islay kesef or meitav, where the mazik has kesef or meitav, and that's where you need the pasuk of v'hameis yolai to tell you that even in that case he could return or the treifa to the nizik.
Beautiful.
And that would be a chiddush. Otherwise, because Yasha doesn't tell you that.
Yes, excellent.
Alma. We see from here, Rava, the Rav Kahana.
Because Rav Kahana asked Rava, okay, so, and there was no response to Rav Kahana. Right.
So it must be that Rava holds like that.
And Rav Kahana holds that.
Right. Alma Rava, Rav Kahana, Sabi, Rav Papa, Rav Huna, Rav Yeshua.
Exactly. So we're going to ask you in 1 second, how does that knock out Rabbeinu Tam? But let's get what the Rosh says. The Rosh says, I just brought you a ironclad proof that Rava and Rav Kahana, who are these Basroim, must hold like Rev Papa. Now, how does that knock out Tosfos?
Okay, Tosfos said, let me go back to Tosfos.
Tosfos just said that the halach is like Rav Huna.
Right. Rabbeinu Tam Inter became the first Sheish Gimel Din Ben Zaken. I guess of a Meitav. So where did he say that? I forgot. Where did he say
No,
that?
all he said was a fact. He just all Rabbeinu Tam says was the fact that the halacha is like Rav Huna.
Right.
Right?
But he doesn't say why.
He doesn't say why. No why.
Right.
But this Gemara will knock out the possibility of Rabbeinu Tam. Question is how.
Right. Well, it's knocking it out because Rav Kahana is holding that they're all equal, like Rav Papa Rav Huna and Rav Yeshua, and the Rosh is saying that we're going to pass them like Rav Kahana because Rav Kahana is the Basra. Did I answer your question?
So the later on people are going to attack this and say, wait, according to your reading, so what did we gain? So you brought me some other Basroim, big deal, but remember Rav Huna was out of place?
Right.
So how did this answer anything?
So since Rav Huna was out of place, so you're saying that really Rav Huna was supposed to be earlier in the Gemara.
Right.
Right? That was in the Rif?
Right.
Right. So who was it before that said that it was they were discussing with Rav Ashi? That was
Yeah, Rav Ashi came along, and he put Rav Ashi, who was the last of the last.
Rav Ashi, and he put Rav Huna at the end, right? So somebody said that, right?
Yeah, the Tosfos said it's at the end.
To show you that Allah is like Rav Huna.
Exactly. So how does this affect?
So you're saying, then why should it be then that the Rosh is saying that we have Rav Kahana, who holds like Rav Huna, Rav Huna, Rav Yeshua, Rav Huna, Rav Yeshua, but you have Rav Ashi is saying you go like Rav Huna.
Exactly. So what have you gained?
Right. So how does one finalize more than the other?
Exactly. Okay, so we're going to come back to this. Okay, I'd like you to read the second answer now of the Rosh, and then we'll look at the meanings to the Rosh. I mean, the Rosh must be explained here. Okay, he's writing very, very, very briefly and expects you to be just like you chop the Gemara. He expects you to chop why this is a knockout to Rabbeinu.
Right.
Okay. So let's see. So what does b'mechuver shebakulan mean? The words.
The best shot is.
Yeah, the best shot at the shot at saying the halacha is like Rav Alfas and not like Tosfos is what?
It's Kesvarim de Garsi, Amar Rav Huna, I Kesef, I Meitav. Ba'amas Nisim Kai, and Rav Huna is going back on the Mishnah, Diktani Tashlumi Nezek, the Meitav Ha'aretz, Ba'asana Lashma Inon, the Kesef Kemeitav. So, in other words, it sounds like he's coming to say that Rav Huna is just going back on the Mishnah.
And therefore,
he's not coming to argue. And he's not coming to argue with Rav Huna. He's not coming
yes.
to he's not coming to
yes.
the spira of Yashiv.
Right.
He's just coming to be Mepharis. The Mishnah says,
Meitav Haaretz.
Meitav Haaretz. And he's coming to be Mepharis. I'm going to put you on mute for 1 second.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, I'm back.
Good. So now how does that help? So keep reading the Rosh. He'll spell it out now.
Okay, so let's see what he says. V'hashta, ein raya lepsak Rabbeinu Tam zal, mashas sider oisei Rav Ashi. Ba'achroina, we don't have a right to Rabbeinu Tam. That Masha Sidi Rav Ashi ba'achroina. Rav Ashi put Rav Huna at the end.
And what did that do? Remember, what that's...
Well, the reason why if you say that Rav Ashi put Rav Huna at the end, he's coming to tell you that we pass like Rav Huna.
Even though we normally go after the Basroi.
Right.
Good.
But we go after the Basroi Rav Ashi. But but if we're going to say that Rav Huna is going back on the Mishnah, so we don't have a raya anymore. The Amasnisin Omar Mil say, because Rav Huna is saying his din on the Mishnah. The yet was not a question of a rumiyah for the psukim one on other until Abayas Rava, and Rav Huna was not dealing with that at all. All it was doing was being mafarish on the Mishnah, and therefore when Rav Ashi put him here at the end, it's not a hechrich that it's coming to paskin like Rav Huna, because Rav Huna is not discussing this question and not coming to decide to answer the rumiyah of the psukim.
Exactly. Right? If Rav Huna was involved in that discussion with Abaye and Rav Papa and all the Chevra, so then he's out of place. But if it's a new issue that he has, he really is only talking about the Mishnah. He's not dealing with the Pesukim.
Right.
So then he's not called out of place. You're only out of place if you're in an argument and you should be in the argument and you're not. But if you're not in the argument, so it just so happens he spoke about the Mishnah and Abaye and Rava were dealing with the Pesukim. Why didn't we speak about the Mishnah first? Okay, that's because we had to talk about, who knows, that Bryce over there and everything else. But that's not you know what I'm saying? But the whole hechrach of Tosfos was that Reb Huna was in that argument and he was brought way later. He was brought after all the other people, and that was the indicator. But if he's not in the argument and he's on the Mishnah, so there goes Tosfos drops.
Right. Very good. Wow. So it's the whole crux. It's so interesting how, on the one hand, you have the Girsa of Rav Kahana and Rava and Rav. You can really throw away the whole pshat just by being Ger's Rav instead of Rava. On the other hand, the whole pshat over here also is dependent on the Girsa of whether you go as Amar Rav Huna or Rav Huna Amar. Because if you go as Amar Rav Huna, that's coming to show you that Rav Huna is just coming to be mafarish the Mishnah, and he's not coming to discuss the machlekes. But Lamaisa, that's what comes out.
So let's try to be careful in our analysis over here. Okay. First of all, what is the Rosh's aim, if I could say that? What's his aim here in this last piece?
His aim is to explain why we could paskin how to explain the problem that Rabbeinu Tam had as to Rav Ashi being the Basroi, paskin like Rav Huna, which would seemingly go against his raya that we go like Rav Huna, Rav Papa, Rav Yeshua from Rav Kahana, who paskin like them.
Well, let's go slowly. First of all, he says, Nirin Divrei Rab Alfas Iker, right? His aim here is to show that Reb Alfas is correct, that the halacha is like Reb Papa.
Right.
Okay? So now he's going to have to remove the two possibilities he had when he explained Rabbeinu Tam. Let's go back into my little diagram here. Okay. Okay. Now, Rabbeinu Tam explained in two ways, either lo pligay or pligay. In other words, Rabbeinu Tam, if we say that in fact Reb Papa holds like Reb Huna and they're not arguing, so then Rabbeinu Tam proved that Basroi is not an issue, correct? Because the Basroi here, Reb Papa agrees with Reb Huna, right? So there's no Basroi issue. Basroi is only if they disagree. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Good? No, I just wanted to be with this is very
Yeah. Yeah.
subtle, right? So then Basroi
Right.
is lo shayach, right? Once you say that there's an agreement between Rav Huna and Rav Papa holds like Rav Huna, so that's the end. There's no Basroi. And the halacha is like Rav Huna. You could have said the halacha is right by Rav Papa either. He didn't tell us the halacha is like Rav Huna. He just said the halacha. That's all Rebbeinu Tam did. It so happens that the halacha is Rav Huna, the way he describes it, right? Meitav and Kesef, and only if you don't have it, Shavik Kesef, right? But if they're not arguing, so Basroi is an issue. So maybe Rav Alfas holds they're arguing, and Rabbeinu Tam holds they're not arguing. That's one possibility that the Rosh gave, right?
Right. Right.
Now, how does this Ref Kahana remove this possibility in Rabbeinu Tam?
Because Rav Kahana is saying that we're just going to hold, like Rav Papa Rav Huna Rav Yeshua, that the Kesef and Meitav and Subin are all the same.
Exactly. So you can't tell me that Rav Papa agrees with Rav Huna, because Rav Kahana clearly gives us what we always thought Rav Papa was holding, which means that all three of them are equal. Correct?
Yeah.
So there's no way you can say that. Now the question is why does that prove the point? Why the fact that maybe Rav Kahana is a fourth position that right? Maybe Rav Papa and Rav Huna agree, and Rav Kahana is another position, right?
Right.
So that you can't say, because if he was another position,
what would be a fourth
in other words, that all things are equal. In other words, according to this, I shouldn't say fourth position. I wasn't clear. If Rav Huna and Rav Papa agree, right, that Subin is given only b'diavad, right?
Yeah.
This position of Rav Kahana would be a new position that we never heard of before, right? In other words, when the Gemara explained all the answers to Meitav and Subin, Rav Papa is not answering what Rav Kahana is answering, correct? Because Rav Kahana agrees with Rav Huna, we're holding in this scenario.
Right.
So then it turns out that Rav Kahana is like nobody.
Right.
And that doesn't make any sense, because if we're saying that Rav Papa holds with Rav Huna, this possibility of Rav Kahana should have been brought in the Gemara as another possibility. Why not? Since it's forced that Rav Kahana must hold that all three are equal, and we're going to say that Rav Papa agrees with Rav Huna, right? So this possibility should have been brought us to solve the problem of Meitav and Subin, correct?
Right.
How come,
Yep.
right? And so you can't say this is the first way of showing that this side of Rabbeinu Tam is impossible. We thought, well, we'll just say Rabbeinu Tam holds that Rav Papa holds with Rav Huna, and then Basroi is not shayach.
Right.
Won't work, because then this position of Rav Kahana is nobody. We never heard of the position, because we already put Rav Papa, Rav Huna. So there is this position which holds all three are equal. It should have been brought over there on that when we discussed Abaya's question.
Right.
How come it wasn't brought? Right?
Right.
That's one way. Also, okay, so that knocks out the possibility of lo pligay. Okay. Since Alma, Rav Rava, and Rav Kahana, Sovrik, Rav Papa, Rav Huna, Rav Yeshua, they all hold the same thing, so you can't say lo pligay.
Right.
Right? Okay, so now we eliminated that. That was only one possibility we gave to Rabbeinu Tam, correct?
Yeah.
It was lo pligay. But there's another possibility that he gave for Rabbeinu Tam, is that it is pligay, and Rav Ashi put Rav Kahana last out of place, right?
Yeah.
So how is Rav Kahana now going to knock that out?
Rav Ashi put Rav Kahana last out of place. Okay, because he's coming even after Rav Huna, right?
Right. So now we're forced to say, forget about lo pligay. That can't be. because then we have like Rav Kahana floating around. He should have been brought in this argument. There's another position. So we can't say lo pligay. Okay, I gave another position of Rabbeinu Tam, that they are pligay, Rev Papa and Rev Huna, right? And Rev Ashi, who's the Basroi, he put Rev Huna out of place to signal that the halacha is like Rev Huna in this case.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So now how does Rev Kahana knock out that possibility? Forget about this. Just using.
I don't know. I don't know if Rav Kahana could knock out that possibility.
Well, he should.
It was saying that Rav Huna is arguing on Rav Huna, Rav Papa,
Right.
Kahana's coming last.
Right.
So that's where you have your problem. That Rav Kahana is coming. Well, the question is, are you saying that Rav Kahana is being last because Rav Ashi put him last, or he's being last because that's where he just happened to exist?
Oh, wait, Rev Kahana? No, or Rev Huna. Now Rev Kahana has nothing to do with last. I mean, he's mentioned later on in the discussion that talks about the next Mishnah. Okay? So first and last has nothing to do with Rev Kahana. Right?
Right.
He just happens to, by the way he discussed the next Mishnah, by the kasha that he asked, we see that he's holding like we thought Reb Papa always was holding.
Right.
Okay? So how does that knock out Tosfos, who said that Rev Ashi put Rev Huna in the last place to tell us the halacha is like Rev Huna? What is the fact that we found Rev Kahana later on holding like Reb Papa? How does that knock out the misplacement of Rev Huna?
I don't know if it does. The Rosh is not saying that it does.
Well, he said his lashon. Remember, umachurab shebakulan, which means there's another knockout to Tosfos.
Yeah, but okay.
He said it does. He doesn't. That mechurab bekulan means I have an alternative way to say the halachas like the Rif and say goodbye to Rabbeinu Tam.
Right.
So, which means that it should have done the job on both sides.
Right.
Okay, so the way they're going to answer this is stuff that we should learn a few hundred years later, but it's okay. It doesn't matter. I'm going to bring it in because I think it's very important. They learn two ways. One, the Gemara just gave Rev Kahana stam, right? The Gemara used Rev Kahana's position stam, as if, in other words, if the halacha really was like Rev Huna, why is Rev Kahana coming up and bringing this old position of Reb Papa for? Why did the Gemara, Rav Ashi, when he edited the Gemara, why didn't he make some sort of comment that about this? That's one way they say it.
But we don't paskin that way. You're saying that Kahana does raya if we don't paskin that way.
Exactly. We don't paskin that way. So at least make a comment or say the halacha is not the way you're learning. The halacha is like Reb Huna. And therefore, they should have knocked them out and said the halacha is like Reb Huna, but they just brought it stam as if everybody knows the halacha is like Reb Papa. They should have said, don't you know the halacha is like Reb Huna? What are you bothering me for? The other way they wanted to say, this is all the Nachlas David later on we're going to learn, is that, so one way is to just say that he was brought stam. The other way is to say, now we have just by adding up people. That's another way they do halacha, by a majority. They say now we have 4 people against Rev Huna, right? And Rev Nachman is 2, so 4 against it. But that's just an adding up thing. That's not as exciting as the other way. The other way is the Gemara just brought him stam without any comments. So it means that the Gemara holds that Ravina and Rav Ashi must have held that was a good answer. They didn't knock him out. They should have knocked them out and said, that's not the halacha. The halacha is like Rev Huna. We need him for Rev Huna. That's the halacha. They should have made a comment. They didn't. Okay, so that's one way. Now, the alternative, Now, the Rosh says you may find a weakness in this first argument, and it's the weakness that we brought up, right? Which was, wait a minute. Still, the argument that we do have, Abaya's question, the three answers there, and then Rav Huna was put out of place. It's true that later on, okay, Stami was not, but still, the fact that Rav Ashi put him out of place here is an indication throughout Shas that's going to be the halacha. But the halacha and the pilpul are two separate things.
Right.
Okay, so that's a weakness in the Rosh. That's why the Rosh had to say umachuva b'kulan. He had to give another answer, okay, to solve the problem that their pligi and achrona is out. So what was his the other possibility to knock out the achrona svara? He said the different girsa.
Right.
If we're holding Omer Apuna, so then there is no achrona.
Because he's not arguing, right?
He was not arguing. There's no achrona. Okay. So that is the Rosh's attack on Rabbeinu Tam and support for Rav Huna. You got to say it's Basroi because you can't say that they agree. Because if they agree, then Rav Kahana is like no one, and if they disagree, well, the Gemara just says stam. It brings Rav Kahana stam with no comment. So it seems that's what they're holding like, and also okay, the other people say there's four against us now, or he's an later achron. Okay, but this is where the excitement is going to get. A lot of people are going to creep in here and try to remove the rush. Okay, on these subtle points on the gearses and everything else, but that'll be our later discussions. But anyway, here's the beautiful setup of the Rosh. He's very, very. I mean, to find that raya was a gewalt. I mean,
right.
It's a Gemara later on who not even talking about the issue. Does talk about Yasha, but his raya for the riff is very, very nice, and we're going to be discussing this is the fireworks, as I said, that's going to happen in the Achronim. Okay?
Right.
So let's, do you have some more time? You're finished on?
I have about 10 minutes.
Okay, very good. So if we can do it, now did we do, so that's the Rosh. Did we do the Ran together?
Nope, not yet.
Okay, so maybe we'll just start the Ran, and when you have to leave, you just tell me, okay? Because the Ran, this Ran is going to bring the Ramah and explain a very important way to learn the Gemara, a different way, and that's going to help us because it's going to help us understand the Rambam a little, and it'll also, since the halach is going to move that way, very surprisingly with the tour, we'll see that next time or whenever we finish this thing. So then we'll be able to see how the Rambam works in this configuration, because he's having to read. Everyone has to read the same Gemara. There's no one making up new information here, so it has to come from the Gemara. So let's read this Ran, okay?
Right. So I have in the back the Muki Yosef.
Yeah, you could read it, no problem.
The Muki Yosef and the Ran. You're really referring to the Muki Yosef and not the
Ran? Yeah,
Ran?
the Muki Yosef, because the whole problem, who's in the Muki Yosef, who's the Ran?
It's the Muki Yosef and the Ran. Okay.
Yeah. Is Rabbeinu Nisim or is it Nemuki Yosef? Okay, there's a whole little problem with that, but it doesn't matter. We did.
Shut the power. Okay. So let's see. Yashiv. I'm not going to be able to find it in the back right now, so I'll just read from the screen.
Yeah.
Yashiv Kreut Seirahu.
And I brought the pasuk. Yeah, I brought the pasuk. Balabo Yishalom Kesef Yoshiv Lebalav. Okay.
Bal Habar Yishalom Kesef. It says Bal Habar Yishalom Kesef. So Yashiv Amli. So why do you need the extra pasuk of Yashiv?
Right. It should have just said Bal Habor Yishalom Kesef Lebalav if you want. Right. Rashi said. So what do I need this extra word Yashiv? Yeah.
Right.
Oh, he says. I'm sorry, he spelled. Oh, he spells it out. Exactly.
Yeah, let us just say Sham Kesef Abal Yoni Yashiv. Rabbi Shava Kesef. I feel it's coming to include Shava Kesef, even Suba the Mashma Kal HaShavas. The word Yashiv, so he's telling you how we know it.
Very, very important.
The first time we're coming across this, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody else.
Did Rashi? How did Rashi describe it?
Yeah, did Rashi say that?
I don't know. What did Rashi have the Gemara there? I can go flipping for it, but
I'm looking. Let's see. Daf Zayin, right?
yeah.
It's a Rami by the Ksimetu today made to be Kamishalam in Midichin Live with Tanya Yashla who similar Kasha Kamida
Riashiv, Rashi.
Yashiv. Let's see, this is Rashi here. Yashla Rashava Kesel, let me see Rashi. Yashiv Kesed Yashiv above the Halarim of the Balabar Yisham Kesed above Yashiv the Kesed Rahman. How the correct Ksiv Yisham Rabbis call Shabbat? Oh, it says Rabbis call Shabbat.
Exactly.
This,
okay. So this is a quote over. I mean, this Rashi sheet. Okay, but it's interesting for us, and that's the key. Now we know why it's also Subin, right? Because the word Yashiv means you can give back anything. That's how they're learning. You don't have to give back money. Use Yashiv, even Subin. You know, just return something that has monetary value. That's how they're learning. Okay.
Right.
Good.
V'chol mili the Yahiv lay mimetaltalei, and anything that you give him, metaltalin meitab ninu. Okay, so this is not. Why is he putting that in here? Because he's saying that it says Kesef and it says Yashiv, Rabbis call Shavais, and he's explaining that the svara behind it is whenever you give anything, a metaltalin is meitab.
That's very good. In other words, you would say, wait a minute, what do you mean your Rabbis call Shavas? You have to, when it came to Meitav Karka, it said Meitav. How do you know to Rabbis call Shabbos? Maybe you can only do the best of your metaltalin.
Right.
Right? So he throws in Reb Papa's svara and he explains, no, when it comes to metaltalin, it's all called Meitav. So he's really putting in Reb Papa's svara here. The metaltalin doesn't have different madregas because you can always get your money back. That's the svara.
Right.
Right? So that's what he says. So he has all this is in summarizations of Kashas and Terutzim, right? Good.
Right. Okay, Papa Bravuna Pasku Helchasa Kalam Farshim Zal. Now he says Rav Papa and Rav Huna doesn't say Rav Huna read Rav Yeshua.
Yes.
Okay.
That's very interesting.
Theoretically, that's what he meant, unless he wanted to confuse us.
Yeah, that's a big problem. That's a big problem. It's true that everyone holds either one way or the other, but I don't, he either wants to say everyone holds like the Rif. I mean, he wants to say everyone holds like Reb Papa, which is not true because we have Rabbeinu Tam that doesn't. Or he wants to say that there's only two ways to Pesach, either Reb Papa or Reb Hunin, which is not such a big chiddush. But there's a dalet over there, we could read it. But let's go a little weiter.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now the red is I put in because it's going to go to Nezikin Balchov Mekachtos, but he didn't write the word Nezikin. Like Rabbeinu Tam.
Right, so I think I'm gonna stop. Let's stop.
Yeah, let's stop here. It's a good place to stop. Okay, next week we'll finish with the Ran and the Rambam, and then we're ready to go into the tour. Bezat Hashem.
Is there a Siyum Shas in Israel next week Wednesday?
Oh, sure. Yeah, there is. You coming in? There is a Siyum Shas, but you can't get into it. I tried to get tickets. It's sold out. But there's a smaller one, and there's a small one in Malo Daphne that you can still get in.
So are you going to be attending during the time we know when to learn, or?
No, I don't. I want to learn. I want to learn.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. I was my grandson wanted to go, but my daughter called up said he can go himself. I mean, I'd rather do. In this case, when it came to Rebbe Lusher, I was teaching. I stopped the other class, but here, same shas. I mean, I'm also doing Daf Yomi. But anyway, have a great week, and we'll go further.
Okay,
Hashem. Okay, yeah, okay, call too.